Welcome to Emotionally Balanced with Dido Balla, where we make emotional regulation easy and accessible for you and everyone. Join me and my guests for real conversations and practical tools to help you navigate life's ups and downs with confidence, calm, and clarity. Welcome to Emotionally Balanced with Dido Balla. My name is Dido. I'm your host, and today's guest is very special. Is my good friend, Dr. Allison Ventura, and she is such an amazing human being. I met her before COVID, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago in Jacksonville. She's an assistant professor at the University of Florida in Jacksonville, but she's also, and I got to read this one, the director of the Child and Adolescent Psychology and Counseling Services for University of Florida College of Medicine in Jacksonville, which is part of the Department of Psychiatry. But I have 3 words for you: dialectical behavioral therapy. Dialectical behavior therapy. This is something that I did not know about before, but after I talked to Ali, I was all about DBT. So I can't wait for you to learn more from her. If you've never heard of DBT, tune in. If you have heard of it, tune in, because you are going to learn some practical tools to help yourself and others around you be emotionally balanced. Let's go. All right, we're live. Ali, I am so grateful that you took the time to come join me, especially because I know you've been traveling and you just got back from a conference, and you went straight into sitting down with me to have an amazing conversation. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. It's really great to be here. I love talking about all these fun things.
Okay, so let's do this. Like I told you, but I'm going to say it again. Like this this topic of emotional regulation is the center of this podcast, because after so many years and in a space where we teach kids how to understand their brains, their emotions, their feelings, we teach adults how to understand their emotions, their thinkings, their feelings, and we teach adults how to understand how kids regulate their own emotions. It has become clear to me that there's no more important skill than this one. Every single human being needs to have a better understanding of how their emotions work, how their bodies send them signals when they are triggered, and what they can do to regulate those emotions. And you and I know from the work we've done together that even young kids can learn these tools and use them right away. It's amazing what you can see a kid go through when they finally understand that there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you. Anything that comes outside from your external behavior is just a sign that your body, your nervous system is telling you that something doesn't feel right, and you're trying to figure out what to do with it. So all the outbursts that we see as educators or as parents, all the quote unquote misbehaviors, more often than not, are just a poor little brain trying to figure out how to regulate a nervous system. And there are so many tools that kids and adults from all backgrounds can use. And when I figured that out, I realized that my mission needs to become to share all those tools with everyone, because I don't want anybody listening thinking that tools such as mindfulness or things that are uniquely positioned to only work for some people and not for others. I want everyone to understand that mindfulness is just one tool, but there are so many more tools that are accessible to everyone. Everyone can access them. And I feel like it's almost like a cheat code or a superpower when you can finally understand, oh, I'm just a human being having a human experience, and there are things that are part of who I am, my senses, things that I have access to that I can use to regulate to feel better. So I'm pumped up, I'm excited, and I wonder how all of that lands with you. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that my whole life is really geared towards emotion regulation. I am a child and adolescent psychologist, but on top of that, I'm a dialectical behavior therapist. And I know a lot of the listeners may not know what that is, so we can get into that. But really, this therapy was created to help with emotion regulation, and it is the most validated tools and strategies to help people understand their emotions and be successful with them. So I too share this passion, and I love it. And it's something that I wish that I had when I was younger, but I have now. So I'm able to give it to others.
Okay, let's get into it. The first thing first is, right, the people who listen are going to vary from psychologists, professors, doctors, to people who are just like living life, trying to be like, look, how do I make sure I feel better today or tomorrow, or how can I help my homie back home, or my sister, or my son, my daughter? Like, so let's explain. So you say the
Dialectical. And I had never heard of
dialectical.
that term until I went to my graduate work. I was a school counselor previously because I believe in, helping kids in schools learn about their social self, their emotional self. I was the kid in school that went to my school counselor all the time, and they really helped me. And then when I went to the schools, unfortunately, there's a lot of testing done with the school. So the school counselor, I couldn't do that. I was doing more testing than helping the kids with their emotions. So I went to get my PhD, and I saw these teenagers responding well to dialectical behavior therapy. I was like, what does that mean? And it's really a wonderful thing that we do all the time, and we need to do more of it. But dialectical is a philosophy. It's a philosophy where we hold opposites at the same time. And what happens is we don't synthesize all of it. We only see this or that, do all or nothing thinking. So, for instance, let's say that you are a teenager and you have a test and you get an 85. You did well and you missed some questions, right? But what happens is most of the kids just say, I missed questions. We love our families, and our families can also be stressful and sometimes drive us nuts, even though we love them, right? It's both and. I have things that I'm proud of myself and things that I also have shame about. And I'm the same person. So it's helping us see the whole picture and hold it all. So dialectical, the two things that we balance are acceptance and change. I accept that I'm doing the best that I can right now, and I can do better every minute, every moment. I accept myself, and I can keep growing. So we really lean in on mindfulness and acceptance strategies. And I had never really heard of this, never before. And it was game changing for me. I am a super sensor, and there's a lot of people out there, a lot of kids out there, a lot of adults that are super sensors and they don't know it. And we can get into what a super sensor is, but dialectical is able to hold acceptance and change and really be more compassionate towards ourselves in whatever situation we're in. So it's a pretty nice package to live life. And I'm so glad that I have it now. So I know I just threw a lot out there, but yeah,
No, that was
dialect.
perfect. That's perfect. And in fact, let's get into the tools right away, because that is a tool. As I'm
Mhm.
listening to you, the mere awareness that you can hold both at the
Mhm.
same time is an emotional regulation tool, because I
Yep.
can walk down a scenario where I think that if I try to do something well, if I have an exam or a test or an interview, if I'm giving a speech, if I'm teaching somewhere, and I have a goal of I want 100% of the audience to pay attention to me as I'm speaking. I want them to feel satisfied and to feel grateful for having come to my speech. And if at the end of it, 75% were paying attention, I can see how I may go down the path of, well, look, 25% of people are feeling just like they wasted their time coming up here. This is so bad. I can go down a spiral that takes me down to self-doubt and even thinking that there's something like lesser about myself because I
Right.
couldn't engage those people. Now, somebody might say, well, the thing to do is to focus on the positive. Come on. You have 75% of people who pay attention. Focus on that, ignore the rest. But to me, that doesn't feel complete, because my
Mhm.
brain still knows that I didn't get all of
Right.
them. So what you just said there, it is dialectical philosophy, which is I can celebrate the fact
Mhm.
that I got 75%,
Yep.
and I can also embrace the fact that there was a real 25% that wasn't there. And I call this emotional regulation already, because
Yep.
I feel better just saying out loud both things are true. So it is valid that I'm feeling a little bad because the 25% doesn't seem to have gotten it.
Mhm.
And it is also true that I have the 75%. I feel better because I would feel worse if somebody was telling me to ignore the
Right.
25% that did not get it. So I love it.
And that's invalidating, right? You're invalidating yourself on either side if you leave out something. And we found that validation tools is very helpful to regulate our emotion. Most people, when they have an emotion, they judge it. I shouldn't feel this way. No one else is feeling this way, or it's wrong to feel this way, or it was too intense, it was too much, and we judge it. Um, but being able to be dialectical says, I have this emotion, and what do I need to do with it to be effective? How do I hold and contain it? We don't want to invalidate ourselves, any parts of we don't want to invalidate others. That's very dialectical. How do we validate ourselves and others at the same time, especially if they're on opposite polarities? This has really helped me have really good, meaningful, hard conversations in a very regulated way with someone that disagrees with me. And it's like, oh, okay, I can, you're angry at me. I can validate their emotion. I can maybe validate that I'm confused about that or even upset, but it helps me kind of open the door to possibilities, looking at myself and others, validating them, validating others. But this is what validation doesn't mean. It doesn't mean agreement. Validation just means like not acknowledging the kernel of truth that is what, like just acknowledging what is. And sometimes what is we don't agree with, but then we have to then figure out how to regulate ourselves on that too. So lots of levels to like peel apart here. Emotion regulation's hard actually. And which is weird, the tools can be accessible and easy. It's kind of, that's a dialect, right? I tell a lot of the kids I work with, you have no control over anything and you have all the control that you need. Like I don't have control like what someone's going to say to me, but I can figure out the control of how I respond to that and the control of what I do with that. Right? So we dialectically have no control and we have all the control. It's really strange.
Let's go down that path with some specific
Yeah.
examples, because I love the example of the conversation that you're having with someone and you can accept and
Yeah.
validate their perspective without betraying the fact that you may not agree. Or the example I gave about I have to give a speech, or the one you give about scoring 85% on a test.
Mhm.
What are some other tangible, practical examples we can kind of go down and show folks how they can use these tools with a dialectical uh, mindset or perspective?
Yeah. The first tool that we always teach people is the observe skill. You can't regulate something. You can't validate something. You can't even be in tune with something if you're not observing. It's observe, observe. It just means pay attention, be aware, check into like your thoughts that are there, check into your body that's there, check in and observe what actually the other person is saying, not what we think they're saying. Like just observing is a superpower tool. It's helped me kind of live my life more fully and more aware, just observing. How many times do we walk from our car somewhere inside and we don't even observe and see like the fresh breeze, that wonderful leaf falling, the sunset? Like when we're in front of someone that we don't agree with, how do we not observe that we love this person, or we
Mm.
observe that this person has a history and observe that's brought them right there right now? I have a history, I need to observe that. So observation's a really good thing, and it's just living your life with more vigilance and attentiveness. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when I think about observing, I am wondering, right? Is the observation starting with observing oneself?
Yes. And it's interesting because I don't think most of us understand what that means to observe, right? So I think you have to start small. And so I think if you try to take on everything, it just becomes too much. But for me, and I always teach it for other people, try to start observing your own body. That's an emotion regulation tool that I wanted to tie into, that is observing the body. The body is a neurological system that's telling us things about our emotions, telling us things about our environment. And most of us don't drop into our bodies, right? I was anxious pretty much my whole life. I still am, but it wasn't until I dropped into my body and observed the signals it was telling me, I could be like, oh, I'm anxious, I'm concerned, I'm worried, I'm this, I'm that. So dropping into our body is a very first step that I really encourage people to do, to start learning the skill of observation for themselves.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper, because think about it again. Depending on the people who are listening, some are going to be like, "Oh, drop into your body. I got it. Thank you so much. Great podcast. I'm gonna come back, but I'm gonna do it right now." Others are going to be like, "Drop into my body.
Right.
Yeah, what is that? Let's talk
Yeah.
about that."
Yeah. So it's basically, we all have a body, right? We're here.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's really stopping to analyze the information in your body. So even just right now, I can really just pay attention to where I'm sitting, and I even observe, right? Like I just went to the gym, I'm a little sore in my hamstrings. my body's been giving me that signals, but it's not until I drop in, notice, check in, stop. I'm like, oh, I probably need to, stretch a little later, need to maybe drink more water, hydrate, But even like if I drop in, like pay attention to my chest, I'm like, oh, I have a little bit of, excitement talking to you. So I'm a little fluttery inside.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Um, I also, I notice that when I pay attention to my body, I'm sweating a little bit. I'm also kind of nervous, which is dialectical. I'm excited to be here. I love talking to you, Dido. And
Mm-hmm.
my body's also telling me I'm a little nervous at the same time, right? I'm nervous and excited. So I
Yeah.
think it's like just stopping and just noticing different parts of our body. But rarely do we stop and just say, what is my body doing? Where is it? What are the sensations and signals going on? Like we don't do that. That's dropping in. It's just saying I have a body and it's telling me information.
Yes, I love it. So I'm gonna add on to that with the way that I like to practice dropping in and checking in. So I start with the sensations. What are the signals that your brain is sending to your body right now? So right now I feel a little bit tingly. I couldn't explain why, but the thing is, it's important to not worry about explaining it at this point.
Right. Just
Just
know.
observe and notice it.
Yeah.
Tingly, like a little mix of a hot and cold. I'm wondering right now. I mean, oh, this is interesting. Is the AC kind of too strong? I don't think so. That's that. I don't have to think too much. I notice that I feel a little hot, a little cold. I notice that I have this sensation going to my throat where it seems like I want to speak really, really fast because I have so many ideas that I want to share that maybe excitement, I don't know, but I just notice what it is. My heart rate has been interesting. My heart rate
Mhm.
has been going fast, but it is slowing down.
Mhm.
I'm noticing it. So as you can see, those who are listening, checking in, dropping in just means go through your entire body. How many
Mhm.
times are you in a stressful situation and you don't realize that one, you might be breathing really, really, really shallow breath, super shallow
Mhm.
breaths, or for like 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 seconds, you held your breath
Mhm.
because you were waiting to something. Like we
Mhm.
don't even realize that, or you clench your fist or your teeth without realizing it, and just dropping in just means asking the question, what exactly is my body going through right now, and being open to
Mhm.
it with no judgment and just paying attention to that. You will be surprised how much you can learn about your own body, your own nervous system, your own emotional regulation by doing that, because sometimes all it takes is realizing that you were frowning without knowing it, your breath was shallow without knowing it, you were clenching your teeth without knowing it, and just relaxing it. Just relaxing
Right.
it is already a step towards emotional regulation.
Yeah, and how nice if we did that. Well, all day throughout the day, we'd be taking care of ourselves. We'd be taking care of our emotional systems, but we'd also be paying attention to probably how we're acting. Like I know if I'm more anxious, I'm going more fast, I'm more frazzled, right? If I'm getting more built up and annoyed at someone, I'm probably going to start lashing out. So if we can start paying attention sooner than later, we can probably then match our actions according to our values. Like, right? Like when someone's in front of me and they're a loved one and I don't agree with them, I don't want to lash out. I want to connect. I want to understand. I want to, be open. But if I'm not paying attention to the signals that I'm building, in a certain emotion, maybe anger or upsetness, like I can't get on top of that. So, yeah, dropping into the body is like one of the most important things. And it takes time. It takes time
Yeah.
and intentionality. Yeah.
And is it fair, Ali, to say that it's actually a forever journey? You're never quite done learning how to do this, right?
No, I learn new things about myself every day. Just when I'm like, oh, I thought I've conquered that. Is there really a conquering of an emotion? I think it's befriending your emotion, befriending, I have anxiety. I'm going to own it. It's my little companion. That's what I call it. You're my now companion. Sometimes you go with me through the day and it makes it more challenging, but other days you're there giving me good information to maybe make me perform better or like get on my A game. So yeah, befriending
Mm,
our bodies, befriending our emotions, even the ones that we think are unpleasant or we experience as unpleasant, that's okay too. So I think emotion regulation starts with checking in, observing, but then checking in with the body, especially like regulating the body.
mm.
There's
And
lots of things to regulate the body with.
yeah, I see a theme here of starting with yourself and learning how to regulate your emotions so that you can be better at understanding and being with others.
Yeah.
So if anybody who's listening is thinking about how they can teach other people how to regulate their emotions, that's a good and noble goal. We do that for a living. However, there's no better endeavor than getting to understand your own nervous system first and how you can regulate it before you can teach other people.
Yeah. And it doesn't take long. I am a scientist as a psychologist. I believe in like data. I want to, like, sometimes when people say do this, do that, I'm like, but why? Where's their evidence, right? But really what we've learned and studied, it doesn't take long to check in. They say if you check in with yourself in a very intentional, purposeful way, at least 3 times a day, really stopping, paying attention, just opening yourself up for whatever information you learn about yourself, whether you find it pleasant or unpleasant, but you check in, that builds the skill, the superpower of becoming more aware. And then you can really extend it to yourself and others. You can really open up the magnifying glass of what you're able to observe. So it just takes, throughout the day checking in. It doesn't take like 30, 40, 50 minutes at a time.
Yeah, and Ali, you just said something profoundly important that I want to highlight, which is when we think about emotional regulation, it is natural to assume that we are only talking about waiting for something stressful to
Yeah.
happen. And while the stressful experience is ongoing, then we reach for the tool to regulate our emotions and feel better. But it's
Mhm.
very crucial for us to make it clear to those who are listening that that's important.
Mhm.
However, and I argue more importantly, you should practice as often as possible when you are not in crisis. Because if you learn how to check in with yourself 3 times a day, whether or not during those 3 times you have something super stressful going on, what you are doing is you are teaching your body and your brain to become more comfortable checking in, to
That's right.
become more comfortable observing without no judgment. And as a result of that, having done that for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year consistently, your brain actually becomes different. It starts to change and it becomes a brain which,
Yeah.
when it encounters the stress, it is more prepared to
Yes.
reach for the tool and regulate the emotion during the actual crisis.
Yes. And one of the best practices that I tell people to do is coming from, not from myself. I wish I could say that I had this one, but it's from the very well known, he's the what we call the father of mindfulness in the Western hemispheres, John Kabat-Zinn. He was the one that really, from MIT, said we can help people regulate their chronic pain by mind body connection. But he kind of helped us establish what mindfulness is, which is just being here at this moment, non-judgmentally. But he said do the shower practice. How many of us are like taking a shower, we're not in the shower? We're
Mm.
having that memory, we're having that planning, we're having that, like, right? But a shower is very luxurious, and that's a good way to observe. Like, observe the temperature, observe the water, observe the smells, observe, the relaxation, maybe observe the tension, but if people just do a shower practice, that is a good way to kind of like, start somewhere. Or even mindful eating, like how awesome is it that we can have meal, and how blessed are we, but we gobble our meals up. But yeah, so it doesn't have to be with just the stress. It can be with those wonderful things, like when you're with your pet or your child or your loved one, really observing yourself while you're there in it. Drop into those awesome moments too and see what your body feels like and what the senses are telling you.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
so deep, and I really want to highlight that once again, that when we talk about emotional regulation, we are not talking about always waiting for something stressful to happen. In
No.
fact, it's the opposite. You want to practice as consistently as you can and dropping into the presence of your experience throughout the day, whether it be the how comfortable the bed that you sleep in is, whether it be
Mhm.
how comfortable it is to have hot water in the morning when you shower, and just paying attention to how that feels on your body. All those simple things. I mean, if there's music playing, being present to how the music makes your body feel, all those
Right.
things, like, I promise you, these are simple things that are extremely powerful for emotional regulation. So that is all about observing. So I want to move on to another tool.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
observing is one.
Yes.
What else can folks think about when it comes to an easy to access tool for emotional regulation?
I mean, I know it sounds so cheesy. And as a kid, I was like, okay, cool. You want me to breathe? But, it wasn't really until I became a dialectical behavior therapist and really, in some way, I don't want to say forced, but I was forced because my teachers and mentors were like, you need to sit down and do this practice with us. And I thought it had to be like some heavy duty practice, but really, it's just learning how to use the breath throughout the whole day. I have a big system. I'm a super sensor. I feel big. My emotions are lit up all the day, but the breath has helped me light it down, and I'm much more, I don't want to say stabilized, but maybe stabilized. Like, right, I'm not going to extremes as much, but it really is the breath. There's all sorts of cool breath work. Um, there's regular breath where you breathe in at a normal, like, consistent pace, a count of four. You breathe out on a count of four. There's one thing that we do in dialectical behavior therapy called paced breathing. I had never heard of this, but it's when you exhale longer than the inhale. So let's say you breathe in for 4 seconds, and I like to count in my head because it keeps me grounded to that moment. You hold it, but then maybe I breathe out for 8 seconds. It hits the vagal nerve. It's just a tool that our body's given us. When we breathe really deep, it hits the vagal nerve and it kicks in. Here's some science, some parasympathetic. That means the calming system. For whatever reason, we as humans are really geared to live in a very kind of like stressed out, like sympathetic things are like, coming at us. But really, it's just like, why am I stressed out? I'm just in traffic. If I'm just sitting in traffic, just sitting, not driving, but there's no danger there. But my system's like, go, go, time, 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 right? But really, that signal is not really dangerous. So I take my deep breaths, I pace breathe, I exhale longer, and it calms my system to be like, oh, yeah, you're just in traffic. You're probably just more annoyed. You're not really in danger. So I do pace breathing throughout my whole day when I have conversations. I do it when I'm like working. But I think breath work is great. It's really, it's an easy tool. We all have a breath. We all
Yeah,
have a breath.
yeah, I love that, and I want to talk about that some more. So when I think about the power of breath, it starts with number one, like you just said, we all have it, right?
All of us.
You were born, you have it. You don't need to pay anyone. You don't need to
Nope.
purchase any fancy gadget in order to access your breath. So you have one of the most important tools for emotional regulation. And I think about physiologically in your body, when you are anxious or stressed or nervous or just scared, we all know what happens to the heart rate. Your heart rate goes fast. It starts just like pounding, pounding, pounding. And then if you pay attention to your breath, it's shallow and fast. And
Yeah.
then your thoughts are also out of control. You're thinking things that 5 minutes later you would ask yourself, why was I thinking that? Why would I be so mad at somebody
Right.
who is behind me just like wanting to drive and get to work? And if you realize how your heart goes and how your breath goes and how your thoughts go when you're stressed, using the breath can teach you immediately how powerful this is. Because if you intentionally slow down your breath, the way Ali just said, you inhale and make sure the exhale is longer than the inhale. So, for example, if you inhale for a count of three, inhale one, two, three. Try to exhale for twice as long. Exhale one, two, three, four, five, six.
Yeah.
If you do that, right away you can see that your heart starts beating slower.
Yep.
Your breath just taught you how to control your heart rate. And then right away, if you check in with your thoughts, they are a lot more friendlier. Or those are thoughts that are a little that could make you a little prouder of yourself than the thoughts you had before. So I when I think about it that way, I can see the work right away. So the chest is not pounding anymore. The thoughts have changed just because I was intentional in breathing.
Right. And so if you're observing your body and that your heart rate's going right, you have to observe the body. You observe that you're upset in your body, then you use the breath to calm the body down so then you can think better. The front part of our brain is our most powerful part that's developed as humans. That's where we problem solve. We do perspective taking, where we consider consequences. When we are an emotion mind, that shuts down. So it's observing that we're kind of getting in a state that is maybe maybe not so effective for us. And then using the breath to kind of calm our system down, then the front part of our brain opens up. In DBT, we call that emotion mind meets logic mind, right? Those are very opposite things, logic mind and emotion mind. But when you put them together, that's wise mind. I know this, I feel this, so therefore I will do this. So the breath really helps my emotion mind open up my brain from a logic mind so then I can act in a wise manner. Um, and then afterward kind of be like, okay, I kept my self-respect. I did what felt right with my values and my goals, even though I was emotional in the situation. So yeah.
Yeah, it's and one more thing on the breath. So I remember I taught high school for I think about 7 years, and the first time I told my students that we were going to practice mindful breathing, they laughed at me. I mean,
Of course.
they were like, "Whoa, Mr. Balla, really? We're gonna breathe? That's what we're doing." So it's a
Uh-huh.
what do you say to somebody who's like breathing? Really, like that's what you came up with? Because I have some thoughts about what my experience has been, but I wonder, what do you tell someone who's like breathing? Really? Come on, we all have breath. Come on, that's simple. I breathe every day.
Yeah. I tell them, one, have open, curious mind. Like, you're right, let's be curious about this. Like let's just be playful and curious about this. And then I love to hit them with the science. I mean, I really do. Science shows this works. But then I hit them with my own experience. I've seen it work for me. I've worked with hundreds of children now, and it's worked for them. So I just say, give it a shot. So I tell someone, be open about it and try it, but you have to practice. It's like when you practice piano or you practice even cooking, you have to do it over and over to feel like it comes natural. So I will say pace breathing for me to not feel natural. It doesn't, like, right, to inhale but exhale longer, it doesn't feel natural. And at first it's like, this isn't working, but of course it's not going to work right away. It's like if you go to the gym and do one bicep curl, your biceps not going to now be like boom. you know you gotta do it over and over so where it feels natural and it feels helpful. And so I say, be open, be curious, give it a try, and be patient with it, and it will kick in one day and you'll be like, I'll be darned, like, wow, that works. I have my teenagers, right, like you were saying, a hard sell.
Hmm.
Now they come into me and they'll find a YouTube video. There's tons of YouTube videos about breathing. It's great. We have these tools right there. And they'll say, look at this video. I use this video every night before I go to bed. Or I use this video before I go and have that hard conversation with my mom. Or, so they come in with stuff now to me, the people that were naysayers. It's great.
Yeah, my experience is similar, and what I tell people is this: look, you have to simplify things. Think about the things that happen in your body automatically without you having to think about it, right? You swallow, you breathe, you digest without having to do anything quote unquote intentional. So that's
Right.
like the automatic side of how things work inside. Then you have the intentional side of things where you need to kind of decide to do it. You need to decide to stand up, to
Mhm.
step somewhere, to run. So you don't just like automatically run unless something triggers that. So first thing is understand that there are things that happen in your body automatically and things that happen intentionally.
Yeah.
So let's focus on breath. You breathe automatically. You don't have to think about it. But if you shift from the automatic breathing to the intentional breathing, you always see a difference. So,
Oh,
everybody listening right now, you are breathing automatically. Stop for a second and take one intentional deep breath. Long exhale.
yeah. And it can only be five of those strung together and they feel so good.
Yeah,
Difference what just that makes, right?
that's it. Just that. So if you took that breath with us, you just realize that there is a difference between breathing automatically and breathing intentionally. And
Yeah.
the intentional mindful breath is the one that is a tool for emotional regulation. So practice this as often as you can. This can be anytime. So for me, like when I work out, for example, when I'm tired mid workout, before I go back to the barbell or the dumbbell or whatever, I stand in front of it. Literally, I don't even think about it anymore. I stand there, I stop, and I take one deep, intentional breath. Exhale, then I pick up the barbell. So I don't even know when I decided to do it, but it's a thing that I do consistently now every single time I work out, and it makes me feel better. So anybody can find a way to incorporate checking in with yourself and then taking one intentional deep breath or three or four or five consistently throughout the day. It'll be very helpful for you.
Very helpful. And it really does, I think, change the direction of the way you're living. It did for me. I think that for me, I feel big, I experience life big, but it's helped me know. And it's funny you said superpower at the very beginning. I tell my kids, a lot of them are super sensors. They're intense with their emotions, they're sensitive, they're reactive. I say that their engines are driving, their car real fast, and I say, you're going to go almost like to the X-Men Academy. You have a superpower that's out of
Mm-hmm.
control. Feeling big is wonderful as long as you know how to be effective with it. I say, let's go to the X-Men Academy, get some skills and strategies, and then you're going to fly and take off and do wonderful things with your super sensing big emotional system. So yeah, these tools are just right there for us, but we don't know what to do with them until we're really taught and we practice, and we do it intentionally.
Mm-hmm. And Ali, you have mentioned super sensor several
Yeah.
times. What is
Yeah.
that?
So some people are more logical, right? We find more people just are more cerebral. They're in their head. They're thinkers. Of course, they have emotions. All humans have emotions, but they just tend to act more out of the logic and the reasoning of life. They can reason their way through situations. Then we have groups of people that are feelers. They feel their way through situations. They can come into a room and pick up on the little nuances of people's emotions. They pick up on tones of voices that are telling them things, but they're biologically, you're just born one or the other. I mean, of course, you have both logic and emotion, all of us do, but you're born one way or the other. But biologically, super sensors are just more emotionally, sometimes vulnerable. They sense things, they feel things, and because of that, it's not that they're maybe just a little gloomy. They can go maybe jump to big depression, or they're not just a little concerned. It's like now I'm panicked. So their systems are sometimes actually really big too. So that's why I want them to know the middle path for their emotions. And then it's reactive. I mean, all of us can be very reactive with our emotions, but super sensors, because they are living more in a biologically emotion driven kind of life, if they feel a certain way, then they do it. So we really help super sensors learn about their biology and how to regulate it. And we also learned that super sensors thrive in an environment that understands them. Like it's hard when you're like a big feeler and you live with a family of logic people. They're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Stop feeling that. Stop crying. It wasn't a big deal. For them, it wasn't, but for the super sensor, it was. So super sensors really need a lot of emotion regulation skills. And then the environment also needs to be understanding and validating that, that they're more emotion based, and that's okay too. Yeah, so I'm definitely a super sensor, and I will say that dialectical behavior therapy, I just found it along the way of become a psychologist, but I was like, oh my gosh, the universe kind of brought me to it. So it was a very big gift to me personally, but now a gift that I could give to others.
Yes, and I think that having the awareness of your own emotional profile is
Yes.
also an emotional regulation tool, because
Yeah.
the mere fact that you know that you are a super sensor, that's already helpful. Because if you didn't know that and you noticed that you had big reactions, big feelings, whether they be pleasant or unpleasant, you yourself not having the awareness, that doesn't feel good, because you can easily start to judge yourself, and
Right.
then you have the people around you who don't have that awareness, and then they just see these big feelings and they don't know, so they also either assume something is wrong with you or they judge. So the mere awareness that I'm a super sensor, just that, right? I can already picture myself. If this were me, I would notice the big emotion, the big reaction, and just say to myself, actually out loud in the beginning, I'm a super sensor. It's okay.
Yeah. I
Just
own
saying
it.
that,
Accepting it, right?
yeah, that's super powerful. So anybody out there who feels like they are a super sensor, just recognizing that already is extremely important. And then you can share that with people around you who can then understand you better, because, of course, they love you and they
Yeah.
just don't know how to help. if they don't have awareness. But again, it starts with yourself having the
Mhm.
awareness.
Yeah, so I need to accept myself and then change the things that haven't been working for me with my super sensor. And my husband's very um he's a neurologist, so he's definitely a head good doctor, logical guy. And I finally had to teach him. I was like, when I have a big emotion, I don't need you to fix it. I don't need you to solve it, right? That's logical. I just say, just listen to me and just say, I'm really sorry, sweetie. That's terrible. And right? Like super sensors just want to be like understood more than fixed. Now
Hmm.
it's my job though. Remember to get regulation and control over how I meet the moment with my emotions, right? That's my responsibility. And that's why I love these kind of tools and strategies. But it helps like everyone know their profile and how they're maybe a match, or I don't think they're really mismatches if you communicate well to each other and try to understand each other. But I think you could have a mismatch if no one's aware of the other one. Oftentimes, a lot of my kids are in families that are very different from them, but no one has awareness. So that, you don't know what you don't know. The parents don't know, the kids don't know. But it is important to know your style and how emotions impact your life and how you live with them, what you do with them, whether you're a logic person or not a logic. Or I mean, I'm logic. I can obviously be logic, but I like my emotions. They
Yeah,
make me.
and I get it. I mean, we both live in Florida, so we know. And I can, without having to get into details, I could tell you that during hurricane season,
Oh
you
yeah,
can find out what your profile is. You will
absolutely,
know.
absolutely.
So we'll leave it at that. And one thing I will add is, again, we're unpacking so much within the two or three tools you've emphasized. We've unpacked little mini tools. So
Yeah,
the awareness is one, but communication,
yeah, yeah,
communicating to yourself and then to the person you love who's with you, how you feel and how you need to be cared for, is
hmm,
also emotional regulation. And
yes,
a friend of mine, maybe last year, gave me this amazing strategy of thinking about the three H's, HHH. So it is
okay,
when you're having a contentious conversation or argument or anything with somebody, especially your loved one, to always trying to be clear for yourself and then communicate. Do you need to be heard? Do you need a hug? Or
yeah.
do you need to be helped? Because be heard just means that, look, right now,
Just
we're
gotta
not
tell it.
problem solving. It's just like, let me just go. Like, I don't even care if you're listening. Like, just
Yeah,
be there, hold space to me. Like, okay, got it. Say less. I'm going to be listening to you. Now, the other one is hug. It may just be, I'm feeling so, the feelings are so big right now. I just need that oxytocin, like bomb. Like, just
yeah,
hold me. We don't have to talk. We can just sit here and I just need to be held. Okay, that's very different, right? Because if you need a hug and I don't know it, I'm going to the third H, which is help, aka
yeah,
cognitively, let's sit down, analyze the problem, and try to figure this out. Now, all three are great
yeah,
when that's what the person needs. And
right,
I've been there. I've been there where somebody comes to me and all they need is to be heard, and my instinct is to want to give them solutions, and
right,
that doesn't work. So just the awareness, I use this tool all the time now, just asking the person, which one do you feel you need right now? And over
yes,
time, I have learned to intuit what the one people who are close to me need, and I can just tell, okay, right now we just need a hug. Right now, they just need to be heard, or right now they actually want us to sit down and problem solve.
yes. And I think that it's really helpful to know that there's differences, right? People need different things at different times. And I love that we can validate. Like sometimes, my husband probably's like, I don't get this emotion, I don't get this situation. Maybe I don't even agree with it, but it doesn't matter. He can just hold me, and that's very validating. That he can hold and contain my emotion without agreeing with it. I mean, he can just hear me and without having to agree with the situation, right? But yeah, that's very validating what you just went through. And then asking, do you need help? Right? Because I,
Hmm.
I can get very offended if he's like, well, this is how you should do it. Be like, bud, I'm a very smart person. I know how to do this. I need to talk about it and get a hug. Right. So I love that, Dido. I love that. I'm gonna
Yeah,
take that and take it to my toolbox of my kids.
there you go. There you go. I love it. So, is there one more tool that you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think the last one for me is having kindness with any emotion. I think we're often judgmental or harsh in our emotions. And even if it's shame or guilt, or even if it's anger towards another person, and when you really check the facts, that's one of the tools we use. We check the facts. Is this emotion really checking the facts? But if indeed your anger is justified for a situation, how do I act in kindness with that emotion? Because at the end of the day, I if I need to take action because there has been an injustice, I need to take action because there has been a harm done, I still want to do it with kindness. If I do admit to myself that I've done something very shame based and very regrettable, how do I act in kindness to myself and then in kindness to maybe the other? So I think for me, that's been a journey to learn how to be kind with any emotion and just honor it, but be kind with it with my actions. That's emotion regulation, right? It's really easy when someone cuts you off in traffic to go and yell at them. I just now observe maybe adrenaline in my body, observe like how dare they, and then I just take a deep breath and say maybe they were really in an emergency. Maybe something is going on in their life I have no idea about. Just I'm just going to let it go. That's kind of kind, right? Instead of yelling, screaming, honking, I'm just going to let it go. So I think
Mm,
kindness with our actions. Would it be nice if everyone could act in kindness even if they were angered? Like, right, the
wow.
world would be a different place. I think we'd have a different outcome. The world would be a different place if we were kind when we're, you know, shame based or guilt based. Like, right? Yeah. Just
Yeah,
act.
and we all know how it feels to be shamed
Oh yeah.
or to be made to feel guilty. We all know nobody loves that. And there's something about what you're saying when it comes to kindness that makes me think about the connection that we have to other people
Yep.
and remembering that that
Yeah.
person who is quote unquote doing the thing to you, such as cutting you off in traffic, it is a person just like you. And more likely than not, you have been in a situation where you are that person. And when you think about it that way, as them being just the extension of humanity, just like you, it gives you a little more, I guess, empathy
Mm-hmm.
and ability to hold space for that kindness.
Yeah, there's a universality here that we all share. We're all humans that feel, that think, that struggle, that laugh, that cry, that have bad days, and I don't want anyone to judge me by my worst moment. So I'm trying to extend that kindness to them. Now, that's very dialectical, right? I like to think about myself and to think about others. I mean, we can hold it all, but are we willing to and intentional about it, right? Yeah.
Wow. I think this has been so powerful because from the very beginning, this idea of thinking about a dialectical approach to therapy and to our emotions was the first tool because it gave folks permission to see the duality in
Yeah.
how complex we are as human beings. It is okay to see both what you perceive as success and what you perceive as a failure. Both
Yeah.
things can be true if you can observe them and accept that you're already a way to regulate your emotions. Then we talked about the importance of just learning how to be an observer.
Yeah.
Just notice what it is that's happening. Start with
Yeah.
your physical body. What are the signals that your body is telling you, and how can you go from how your throat might feel, how your chest might be pounding or not, how fast you're breathing, how your shoulders feel, how your eyebrows feel, how much you're salivating, just your neck, your ears. Observe all of that. Already is a way to regulate your emotions. And then we talked about befriending the emotions that show up. Once you observe
Yeah.
them, your job is not to wonder why they're there and then question them and like feel like there's something wrong with them or you. No, just befriend those emotions. And from then, we went to the importance of breathing as a tool for emotion regulation. And breath, not only is it important for you to approach it with curiosity, but start with gratitude because you have breath without having to ask anyone for it or without having to pay anyone for it. And also be grateful that your brain, your body can breathe without you thinking about it. Once you've done that, then learn how to shift to an intentional way of breathing. Because the more you can shift from automatic to intentional way of breathing, the more you learn how to regulate your emotions. Then we talked about the importance of practicing throughout the day. Don't wait for an actual crisis or emergency, because I always think about it this way. You don't wait for the fire to start before you practice the fire drill,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
right? That would not work out. So don't wait for the emergency or crisis. Just find 2 or 3 times throughout every single day and practice intentional breathing. Then we talked about the importance of knowing your own profile.
Oh,
Are
yes.
you a super feeler? Are you somebody who has big emotions, big reaction, or not? Are you somebody who's more quote unquote logical, or somebody who's more quote unquote emotional? And there's nothing wrong with either. You just need to know, because the more you have awareness, the more your nervous system is settled because you understand yourself. And then you can communicate to other people. And within that, we had the example of when you are checking in with yourself, do you need a hug? Do you need to be heard? Or do you need to be helped? And the more you can understand yourself this way, the more you can ask the folks around you to support you that way, which then communication is a way to regulate your emotions. So many tools. If you just communicate to someone, hey, this is how I'm feeling, this is who I am, this is my profile, that is a way for you to feel more emotionally settled. And finally, we talked about kindness.
Yeah.
Kindness to yourself, which by default, if you think about the fact that we are all an extension of the same species, means kindness towards other people.
Yep. Yeah. There it is. Look at that, Dido. What a journey we've had. I love it. This is exciting.
Yes,
It's a game changer. It's changed my life. It's changing, the kids and the teenagers I work with. And it's something that humanity needs. We need this.
I appreciate it. And is there anything else you want to share with people about either your work or the things you want folks to be aware of? Anything that comes to your mind, either where they should go to find more information, or in addition to anything that we've discussed today, whatever is on your heart, you can share.
I don't do a lot of technology. I have no social media, but I do think that there's good things on YouTube and the internet for breathing, good things for body scans that you can look up, good things you can look up dialectical behavior therapy skills. There's all sorts of videos just on the skills. So I do encourage, sometimes Dr. Google does do good things for us. Go
Uh,
out there and start exploring, right? Explore.
Shout out to Dr. Google. And I like that.
Right.
I like it for this podcast too, because this podcast is focused on giving access to everyday people, right? So we
Yes.
don't need to go get a special certification. Dr.
No.
Google it is. And if you have the time, you got Dido and Ali here. So look, the one and only Dr. Ali Ventura, you are awesome. I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful for you and your time. And I can't wait for us to have part 2.
Absolutely.